Looking at the economic calendar, before you go into any trading week, like I said in the introduction, you always want to keep in mind of the economic calendar and look for red news events throughout the week. So as we can see, Monday, which was today, did not have a news event, but it was pretty filled with volatility, and we will get into that a little bit later. Tuesday, we have 10 a.m. consumer confidence. Wednesday, we have FOMC, so we can expect majority of the liquidity and volatility to be on Wednesday. Thursday, we have 8:30 news, so we can expect something to do in the morning session. Friday, we also have 8:30 news, so we can expect something to be there as well. Now, I'm expecting this week to be filled with volatility, even after today. And and we can expect Wednesday or Thursday to form the high or low of the week. So looking at the chart, we have the Nasdaq on the left and the S&P on the right. So we had this huge drop last night that formed, and at the beginning of the move there was a sequential SMT. Now it was between Wednesday and Thursday, and Friday did one more run higher before dropping. But on the Nasdaq, Wednesday's high was still left intact, and Thursday and Friday failed to take this high, while the S&P took this high on Thursday, making it sequential. So yes, this is still a valid sequential SMT. So as we can see, there was this huge gap that formed on Sunday, and price continued to drop. And whenever you are doing analysis for the week, always wait for the opening price of Sunday, because sometimes things like this can happen. Now, the reason why there was this huge gap was because there was real world news. And yes, sequential SMT can tell you whenever real world news is about to happen or is happening. So that's something you can look into. Maybe I said too much right there, but but I believe on the east there was something that happened with Gaza and all that good stuff, and China had came out with their own AI chatbot, which caused price to gap down a lot and then continue lower. Now, as far as where we can see the market draw to next, we could expect that opening gap to be used as our draw on liquidity for the index futures triad, or mainly the Nasdaq and the S&P. And now looking at Forex, we have the dollar and the euro. And today we are looking at the move that happened today in London session, which huge drop on the dollar, big rally on the euro. And what kicked off the move was, yes, a sequential SMT on the 90-minute cycle between Q2 and Q3. As you can see, the euro failed to take the low. The dollar took the high. So the dollar and the euro are inverse correlated. So if the dollar goes down, the euro goes up, vice versa. The dollar took this high above the true open. The euro made the failure swing below the true open. And the sequential SMT formed right at the opening of the quarter. So as you can see right here, the dollar took this high right here. And so we took this high at the end of Q2, and then Q3 opened up and we took this high. This still counts as a valid sequential SMT because this candle right here is still a part of Q3. So Q3 still took Q2's high, while on the euro, at that same candle, it failed to take Q2's low. So whenever you're looking at sequential SMT, you're looking at the previous quarter's high and low. You want the highest point of the quarter or the lowest point of the quarter. That's where the SMT will form and is what will make it valid. So now looking at the entire triad with the dollar, the euro, and the pound, we can still expect continuation from the move. So we can expect this high on euro, this high on pound, and then this low on the dollar. And now we can do some Q&A. Since the Dow already traded above and beyond the new week opening gap, creating a sequential SMT, do the other ones have to reach for that new week opening gap too? So right now, we are not going to look at the Dow. We're just going to look at the duos, because the Dow is decoupled. So on index's weekly sequential SMT between Q3 and Q4 last week, I'm a bit confused on that. When looking at Q1, do we compare Q4 to Q1 or Friday to Q1? So even though Friday is blank, it still can be used as a quarter. And Friday has its own function, which we will get into later on. Do you ever look at the CFDs for cracks and correlations? If you look at US 500 at the highs, it's quite telling. Yes, there is something to that, but the futures data is what we'll base everything off of for now. How do we know when the Dow is decoupled? We will get into it. Don't worry. After the gap to be formed on NASDAQ or S&P, you expect to go there and fill. Can you enter? Are you talking about like enter short here? No, we're using this as a target. So we would like to see price draw towards that. And then once it hits this gap, preferably I would like to see an even more willingness to run higher, taking out these highs. Any thoughts on the bearish quadrennial cycle sequential SMT on futures? So here is a little trick, because now we have now I can talk about sequential SMT. For looking at the index futures triad, the highest cycle that you want to look at is the monthly cycle. That will be the highest probability SMT from the monthly cycle and downward. Now, the yearly cycle can offer something under very, very specific criteria, like it did earlier on in this year. But generally speaking, the monthly cycle and below, that's where you'll have the best setups. Because the index futures triad is literally designed to go up over time. Would you recommend only utilizing NASDAQ and the S&P? They are more closely correlated than the Dow. The Dow is kind of like the sixth sister. Is a higher time frame SMT better than a lower time frame, such as daily SMT before the whole move up, and then we get this hourly SMT formed by the big drop? Should we take the daily SMT as still needing to take highs formed in December? So there is something to that, and the 2024 students know, and it's directly correlated to SMT. But yes, price will move from an SMT back to an SMT, back to an SMT, once time is right. Isn't the Dow, when it's decoupled, kind of showing what could happen on the S&P and NASDAQ? Yes. Is there a difference if the sequential SMT occurs in the beginning of a certain quarter, such as DXY and the Euro today, rather than it happening at the middle of the quarter, in terms of how quickly price will run? The higher probability ones that are quick will form in the middle of the quarter. But still, sequential SMTs like this can be valid. And if you don't trust it, then you can use a fair value gap after it forms. Thoughts on using NKD? I personally don't like it. Could you perhaps go over the monthly cycle, weekly cycle, etc.? So what we are looking at right here, the monthly cycle is comprised of weeks, 4 weeks to be in specific. If you are gauging SMT between these weeks, which would be gauging SMT between the monthly cycle, then you would want to see it between the 4-hour time frame. So you would look at it through the lens of the 4-hour time frame. The weekly cycle is comprised of 4 days, excluding Friday, and you want to view it through the lens of the hourly time frame. The daily cycle is comprised of 4 sessions, and you want to view it through the lens of the 15-minute time frame. And these are the most important cycles right here, because you have to understand these cycles before you can move down to the 90-minute, the microcycle, etc., etc. In regards to sequential SMT, do you need the true open of the cycle, or will it still be high probability to use a revolving true open, or both? You can use just the true open as it is, or both true opens, so the revolving true opens as well. But preferably the opening of Q2, which is the real true open, that's the big one that you want to follow. So when we form sequential SMT on the weekly cycle and Dow is decoupled, so it's going up, it can happen to be used as a valid confluence sometimes, which we will get more into when to use the Dow, when to not use the Dow, and because in each of the triads, there's one asset that kind of likes to do its own thing. What's the difference between hidden and normal sequential SMT? I don't think we've talked about hidden SMT yet, which we probably will in the future once it forms. In Forex, it's the pound. Yes, you would be correct. Does it need to close above or below the high or low to count as a sequential SMT, or just the wick? Preferably, you want a cracking correlation between both. So both the wick and the bodies. That will be, if you have that, that is the highest probability SMT, sequential SMT. Ask you about Ethereum. Oh, we haven't talked about that yet. We'll talk about PSPs in the future. I wish I could answer the question, but so highest probability sequential SMT would be between the dollar and euro and the S&P and the Nasdaq. Yes. Sequential SMT makes an opposite sequential SMT on the same time frame or cycle. How to consider such formations on the market. You will either see the new sequential SMT override the old one, or you will see it used as a short-term retracement for a continuation of the larger move in regards to what you're talking about. So in the daily cycle, we are looking for entries on the 15-minute time frame. Yes. Sometimes we have SMT, but the price continues going up or down in one of those triads. How do you confirm the SMT, or when do you know you can enter the trade? Don't worry, we have a concept for it, which we'll probably come out with in February. Once you have both of those, you have an SMT, and then you have the other thing, it's like, it's game over. What are you thinking is going to happen for NQ this week? I suppose today was X, so tomorrow is A, and then M on Wednesday and D on Thursday. Yes, the same thought process as what you are. How to distinguish retracement and the situation when a new sequential SMT overrides a previous one. Don't worry. In due time, you'll know. There's only so many things I can talk about right now, because I wish I could answer that. Sometimes, if sequential SMT forms, but instead of making the move, it only makes a retracement to a higher or lower, how to identify if it's going to be a retracement or a big move. Same thing I told Trutix. And as we go further and further, you guys will see that sequential SMT happens all of the time. It's everywhere. Can one look for a reversal in the gap? If not, why not? We will see whenever we get to this point. If we get there. Because sometimes I'm going to get it wrong. Many of you that have been with me for a while know that we rarely get it wrong, but we just have to see how it plays out. And then if I get it right, then we review what happened, how I got to the conclusion, and then that's how you learn best. By seeing it called in front of you. What if we created manipulation on Wednesday, but there wasn't clear SSMT, but two assets closed below the low and the other didn't? After that traded above it, is it valid SMT? Yes, SMT can be between the closes, which, like I said, we will get into that. Did Lawson upload the QT divider indicator? I'm not sure. But I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. So hopefully you guys found this one insightful. I believe Day will be speaking with you all on Wednesday. So good luck and good trading.